this interview. And like the journalist said, I could have had the answer already to my question. There's never a reason where you think you need to be that abrupt unless you feel like this is not dignified. Whatever's happening, whatever this is, shouldn't be happening, and I can stop it because I'm white and you're not. What was beautiful though, if you look at the actor, he saw it coming even before it started, and he's not gonna give up on at all. And he said he's not gonna physically move us, and if he tries, then he just giggles because he knows that's not what it is. So I think when Black people stick up for other Black people, especially when people being interviewed, meaning people of prestige, are talking to journalists, you are obligated to ensure that journalist is safe. And to be Black and queer for that person to be in that space and to be ostracized in this way is a constant reminder that the naught that the world see us with. And I think, thank God that he had a journalist that understands, or a press secretary or whoever that understands that this is important. Like you said, the resume itself, but also because it's a Black and queer person asking me a question, and they don't look like most of the people asking me questions in this space. So I applaud the actor and his team for standing there.
I didn't look like that either on a red carpet all those years ago, and Quincy Jones did the same thing for me. Standing next to a beautiful emerging artist, Tamia, had the same thing happen. Same exact thing happen. Maybe I looked too young. Maybe I was too skinny. I don't know. But I couldn't possibly have belonged there, okay? So I get it, and it's not right. Other journalists, this thing picked up steam because other journalists of color said, you know what? Let me tell my story now, #MeToo. It has happened to me. And they started weighing in, and look at the accounts. I saw you on the press line yesterday. The way it was set up was so typical of people of color press at the back. Yep, absolutely been there. Black journalist treatment, Black press treatment as well. It's true. You remember what happened to me with Tamron Hall and Tracy Ellis Ross at D23, shaking my head. Happens all the time. This is why I stopped doing carpets, shaking my head. Back of the line, you don't matter. This is how things run here, Mayor. We have to keep fighting the good fight, but I think it bears a reminder to people how exhausting that is.
Yeah, I mean, and the idea that, this is why I was trying to tell people, you see in King's last few years, he went away from this idea that we just need to have space at a lunch counter or a seat in front of the bus. And we need to start talking about what true equity looks like, because the lunch counter wasn't the only place Black people were being pushed to the back to. Bank loans, business loans, in the workplace, applying for jobs. And then of course, like we're talking about right now, Black journalism, Black press gets to the back of the story where they say, we're out of time. Of course you are, because all the white people have asked their question and there's no space for our point of view. So I think if we're acknowledging the Black point of view, then we're obligated to do something and say something about it. So I'm sorry for you and also all the other Black journalists who suffer through this shenanigans that we call America's press.
And here's something else. I have a good friend who has an incredible organization, Real Times Media. This is a constant struggle to say, hey, look at us. And what's going on now is you have largely white entities who are co-opting or saying, hey, get under our umbrella, because they need Black stories and they need Black access, authentic access. And I wonder how you feel about that. I'll give you the last word, about a minute and a half left.
Yeah, I mean, I tell people all the time, it is. I'm not against working for organizations if you feel comfortable over there and you could be your whole self. But the idea that you can co-opt what I bring to the table for your benefit and not my community's benefit makes me a sellout, and I'm not worthy. I would never do that. I see Black people in politics all the time, carrying the water of the parties and not taking care of our community, making it a hard thing to determine if representation is enough. And I would argue that it's not. If you're not representing the benefit of our communities, or you're not bringing benefits back to our community, then you're just a face in a place, and that's not enough. It never has been.
And do it unapologetically, because I see other groups that I'm proud to see them do this. Stand up for their very being, their very essence. They should, and shouldn't we, Mayor?
Absolutely, we must. I mean, we talk about our brothers and sisters of the Jewish community, LGBT crowd, how they stick together about issues that are important to them. It is absolutely true that we need to call out the world's comfortability with allowing people to be anti-Black and stay and remain in spaces. We must stop that. We must stop that first, for sure.
Mayor, you are a joy. You are an educator. You are an illuminator. You make me happy. And I said it before, I'll say it again. You make me smarter. Tell people where they can find you. Besides City Hall in Enfield, North Carolina.
Yeah, they can find me on Twitter at Mundell Robinson. I think that's a great place to start.
It is. Appreciate you, Mayor. This is Indisputable. I'm Sharon Reed, in for the great Dr. Rashad Ritchie. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hello and welcome to the show, Unbossed. We are so glad that you are here. Today is Monday, so you know what that means. This is Jessica Burbank Monday, JB Monday. Jessica, how are you today? And is there anything going on Rebel HQ that you would like for us to know about?
Monday is the best day of the week because of Unbossed. It's very exciting. And the watch list in the morning. It's a big day. But yeah, there's a Rebel HQ video that's pretty funny. That's of the Kevin McCarthy video that I teased the last time I was on here, of all of the highlights of that.
Oh, well, good. We must check that out. So please support Jessica and the whole team over at Rebel HQ. You don't want to miss it. And today on the show, Jessica and I are going to be talking about the mass shootings in California. 11 lives have been lost. No telling, they may add to that count. Hopefully not, but it was 10. And now breaking news since the show has began. We're up to 11 right now. And then meanwhile in Iowa, Republicans have some nerve trying to legislate what poor people can eat. We're gonna dive into that. And then later, Tomi, and I'm talking about Tomi Lahren. She's at it again. She must be starving for my attention, so I'm gonna give her some today. And we're gonna get right into this, but do not forget to subscribe. If you are not a subscriber, subscribe. If you are, send a text or a message in a bottle to a friend or frenemy and tell them to subscribe to Unbossed. Do that, share the stream. And as you know, on this show, we read viewer comments. So make sure you send some love in those comments. Tragedy over the weekend in California. Take a look.
Southern California, that horrific mass shooting on Saturday night. The victims were celebrating the Lunar New Year at a dance studio in Monterey Park when the gunman came in. At least 10 people killed, more in the hospital as we speak. And police say the suspect took his own life after officers approached him in a white van yesterday.
Gunshots rang out around 10:20 p.m. Saturday night.
And I got approximately 10 deceased.
Police say the gunman entered the venue and opened fire, killing 10 people and injuring 10 others.
Suddenly heard the boom, 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 boom.
Hattie Pung was there as the shooting broke out. She says several people around her were killed.
You will see the body already, several lying there.
Now we know, as I said in the opening, it is now 11 people dead. That number could change. At the time that news clip was recorded, it was 10. Now, unfortunately, it is up to 11 people. As stated, they were celebrating the Lunar New Year weekend. Now, Los Angeles County Sheriff Robert Luna gave an age range for the victims. I don't have the specific ages because they have not been identified, but they're not in their 20s or 30s. They seem to be probably, I would say, in their 50s and 60s, and maybe some even beyond that. So that's coming from the Los Angeles County Sheriff, just giving an estimation of what he thinks the age range may be of the people who were killed. Now, the shooter has since been identified as Hugh Con Tron, 72 years old. Let's put up his picture. There he is, 72 years old. His connection with the first hall, or he was connected with the first hall he attacked. This headline: gunman had been a regular patron at dance hall he attacked, according to people who knew him. And that reporting is coming from CNN. And there's since been an update from the sheriff department. Take a look.
Based on the previous information relayed by homicide investigators regarding the white van involved and seen leaving the scene of the incident in the city of Alhambra, the Torrance Police Department was notified, and at 10:20 a.m., the Torrance police officers located the white van matching the description near the area of Sepulveda Boulevard and Hawthorne Boulevard. As Torrance officers pulled behind the vehicle, the white van entered a shopping center parking lot. When officers exited their patrol vehicle to contact the occupant, they heard one gunshot. And although that closes a portion of a very long day for all of us, the investigation is still ongoing. Sheriff's homicide detectives are working around the clock, gathering additional information and working on determining the motive behind this extremely tragic event.
Tragic indeed. And unfortunately, Republicans have wasted no time in trying to blame everything else except for guns for the shooting. Let's take a look at this tweet. This is the Republican Party's response to a mass shooting that killed 10 people and wounded 10 more. Again, We have new reporting that it's 11 people. Can we please stop pretending they care about gun violence or crime? And that was a quote tweet over Democrats never waste a crisis. And the next tweet comes from Little Donald. You think you'd hear a lot more about the mass shooting of 10 people in California, but don't worry, you won't hear anything about it because it wasn't done by a white conservative man with an assault rifle. Doesn't work for the narrative, so it basically never happened. And again, that's coming from little Trump Jr. Now, at the end of the day, certainly my stunt double gets this just right here when she says we must come together as Americans, regardless of political affiliation, and agree that we have a mass shooting problem. Just period. That's just it. That's the beginning, and that is the end. But some people also want to make a claim that mass shootings are the fault of people with mental health challenges. But again, that is not the case. Blaming mental health problems for gun violence in America gives the public the false impression that most people with mental illnesses are dangerous, when in fact, a vast majority will never commit violence. And that is coming from the New York Times. So Jessica, I mean, we know that this tragedy struck. There were some other shootings. There was a shooting in Baton Rouge. I mean, we've had so many already. The year has just started and the numbers are soaring with these mass shootings. Your thoughts about this situation?
Right, yeah, just the jarring statistic people were throwing out there of 33 shootings in the first 22 days of 2023. And it's interesting to hear the New York Times talk about mental health, because of course there's a whole range of mental health issues you can deal with as a person. But it seems to be that it's the case more often than not. When we have a mass shooter situation, it's someone who is expressing an anger, a loneliness, some kind of qualm they have with society or the community. And our outsized focus on the individual as a society has allowed us to have this blind spot, right? To say, of course, they're not responding to problems with the community or larger society. Of course, this is a monster. This is something wrong with them, instead of reflecting what needs to change so that this doesn't happen, so that people don't want to commit these egregious acts of violence and kill so many people, and then at the end of it, end up killing themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. We do. This is a universal problem and we must deal with it in a universal way. Definitely that. And more people could have died, but they didn't, thank God. And why? Because of Brandon Say. Take a look at this.
Something came over me. I realized I needed to get the weapon away from him. I needed to take this weapon, disarm him, or else everybody would have died. When I got the courage, I lunged at him with both my hands, grabbed the weapon, and we had a struggle. We struggled into the lobby, trying to get this gun away from each other. He was hitting me across the face, bashing the back of my head. Finally, at one point, I was able to pull the gun away from him, shove him aside, create some distance, point the gun at him, intimidate him, shout at him and say, "Get the hell out of here. I'll shoot. Get away. Go." I really thought I would have to shoot him if he came at me. This is when he turned around and walked out the door, jogged back to his van.
There is no doubt that Brandon saved so many lives. He put his life on the line by challenging this shooter. When somebody has a gun and you are unarmed and you walk up to that person, you really are taking your life in your own hands. But thank God, thank goodness that Brandon was able to overpower this man. Obviously, adrenaline is going everywhere and people's strength increases when the adrenaline is popping. We can see that Brandon is certainly younger than the gunman, but anything could have happened, Jessica, and just really thank God for Brandon.
Yeah, it really reflects that, we keep us safe, and it's community members who love the people who are in danger, who are keeping us safe from these folks. The fact that he got away and was at large for a while was really scary, I think, for members of that community. We haven't been in a situation like that in some time. But the fact that we even have people like Don Jr. or Little Trump, which I think is a great nickname for him, saying something that just doesn't describe what's happening or the political narrative whatsoever, because of course we're covering this. I've seen coverage of this all over Twitter. The left is addressing this. It's not that we're only addressing mass shooters if they're white conservative men, but it goes to show that there are political echo chambers here.
Yeah, I mean, they can't help themselves. And yes, why let President Trump get the pleasure of naming everybody, giving everybody a nickname? We're gonna jump in there too, Jessica. Lil Trump is weighing in on this, and he's wrong per usual. I mean, 99.9% of the time he is wrong, and you are absolutely right. We're covering it. So many people are covering this. Yet another mass shooting, and it is a reminder that we must do something about gun violence in the United States of America. We must have a very communal and deep-seated conversation and move this conversation to action. If not, we will be reporting more incidences just like this, unfortunately. And Jessica, you threw out that stat, 33 shootings in 23 days?
Yeah, now it's 23 days. Yeah, 33 shootings.
Yeah. Well, we're sounding the alarm here as many others are doing the same thing. America, we got to get serious about this, okay? Some folks want to continue to act like the Second Amendment is absolute. It is absolutely not absolute. It is not the most important thing, saving lives. There was a preamble to that Constitution too that people seem to forget about, protection of welfare, et cetera, doing the high good. I'm paraphrasing it, but there are other parts of the Constitution other than the Second Amendment. We have so many guns in the United States of America, and it is a problem. Yes, if certain people want to do bad deeds, just having gun laws alone won't necessarily solve the problem. We get that, we will admit that, but we need to start somewhere, and we can start multiple places. We can do multiple things at one time, but we must deal with this proliferation of gun violence in the United States of America. It is a scourge. Now, the Iowa Republicans attack on the poor. So the party of so-called small government and freedom is proven that the terms are conditional at best. Check out this headline. Iowa GOP wants to limit SNAP food list. Here's how it could impact the most vulnerable communities. Now, in the midst of a raging global pandemic, the pandemic is not over, the suffering is not over. Again, those people who were already suffering before this pandemic caught hold of all of us in this world. There are people suffering socially, economically, and politically. And the pandemic just simply exacerbated or exposed that suffering, that deep-seated suffering. And so when you got folks like these Iowa Republicans who should be doing more to edify, to lift, to change material conditions, but then they go and try to pick on the most vulnerable people in our community by slapping on rules for how folks who receive SNAP benefits can spend those benefits, what type of food they can buy. And there are nearly 40 House Republicans that have co-sponsored this bill. And this bill also targets Medicaid and other public assistance benefits. So Iowa House Republicans drafted File 3 this month, a bill that proposes strict limitations on what food items SNAP a recipient could use their benefits to buy, including white bread, fresh meat, and sliced cheese. Many believe the new bill would inflict unnecessary financial strain on Iowa's most vulnerable communities. Further, the bill, which almost 40 Republicans co-sponsored, would require SNAP recipients to have a more restrictive list of food items they can buy that would mirror the foods approved for the state's current women, infant, and children program. It would also require an asset limit on SNAP participants, and Medicare recipients would need to work at least 20 hours a week to receive benefits. Something wrong with these folks, Jessica.
Yeah, I think my first indication that the economic system was rigged was, my father's a carpenter. He builds homes with his own two hands, but during the financial crisis, of course, so many people were at risk of losing their homes, myself included, and that's because of what the banks were doing. In Iowa, with their own two hands, many people are responsible for feeding the rest of the country, for growing the food, for packing the meat, and for these people to be paid way less than the value of that labor to feed so many people with the work they do for hours and hours every single week. And then to not be able to have access to the food that they help provide to others, it doesn't make sense. It's backwards. They should absolutely have access to the food they need. There's no reason that they can't. That's a good reason, right? So of course, the reason they want to limit this is because it's a lot easier to exploit people who are hungry, who are willing to do whatever work possible to make the money they need to feed their families. That's exactly what's at play here.
Exactly what's at play. And the House File 3 is getting substantial pushback, as well it should, from state Democrats and hunger advocacy groups who argue that the bill will negatively affect those that are struggling to keep up with the rising cost of food and still reeling from inflation and job loss, as we were just talking about, Jessica, brought by the pandemic. And then we have the chair of the Iowa Hunger Coalition weighing in, Luke Elzinga, and he said the following to Time magazine: "I've been telling legislators in the state of Iowa we have food banks and food pantries that are breaking records in terms of the number of people that are turning to them for assistance. At the same time, the number of Iowans enrolled in SNAP is actually at a 14-year low." And then here's the breakdown. We want you to see it and also hear it. I'll read it. Of the asinine restrictions being proposed by File 3: no white grains, no baked, refined, or chili beans, no fresh meat, no sliced, cube, or crumbled cheese. That reporting coming from Axios. Again, you have legislators, primarily those who consider themselves part of a freedom coalition, the GOP, government, get your hands off all types of my stuff, except for when it comes to a woman's womb and now what poor people are allowed to buy in Iowa. Yeah, that party has decided to attempt to legislate what recipients of SNAP can buy to feed their families, as if poorer people are not entitled to being able to buy exactly what they want to buy and exactly what they want to eat. This is classism indeed, no doubt about it, and just really trying to crush people who are already in vulnerable positions. Shame on each and every one of these Republicans. Shame on them for doing this. And it is my sincere hope that this bill does not pass and that the masses in Iowa rise up and that Democrats rise up and put the requisite emotion that needs to be displayed about this bill and how it is coming for and hurting vulnerable populations. Jessica, when I was in the legislature, one of my colleagues in the Senate had decided to introduce like almost a similar bill. It was a bill he wanted to have welfare recipients drug tested. And I went to his office to explain to him how exploitive that was, how it was already exacerbating the pain that poor people already feel. And then I began to tell my story, that I come from a safety net family, and that had it not been for that safety net, there were many times where my siblings and I would not have had food to eat. And he told me that his constituents wanted this bill, as if his constituents are coming to public meetings saying, please, 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 please drug test folks who receive public assistance, because we know that they gotta be, they have to be the ones who are scrutinized more than anybody else. And we know that they disproportionately abuse drugs more than anybody else. So he wouldn't listen to reason, Jessica. So I said, you know what, just as you introduce a bill, I will introduce one of my own. And I introduced a bill in the Ohio Senate to drug test members of the legislature regularly and randomly. Because if the premise is you want to protect the taxpayers' dollars, well, we derive our salary from the taxpayers. So if you want to protect their dollars, then we need to be the first in line to be drug tested.
That sounds fair to me. It's ridiculous that it's the same members of the GOP that spread this narrative that if you need to be on welfare, you're getting a handout and you're lazy. When corporations like Walmart give step-by-step instructions for their new employees how to get on SNAP benefits, because despite them working over 40 hours per week, they're not paying them enough to feed themselves, and they qualify for government assistance when it comes to SNAP benefits, which are commonly called food stamps, right? That narrative cannot be combated with the typical neoliberal narratives. You have to explain to people that, in fact, the work you've done is worth far more than they're paying you. And they're essentially stealing from you by them getting so many tax breaks and not paying into these systems, and also not paying you enough to feed yourselves when they're making billions of dollars in profit. It's ridiculous.
That is exactly right. We subsidize companies like Walmart. We are subsidizing them because they're workers, and there are other companies who fit that exact criteria, Jessica, and I'm so glad that you brought that up. Now, my colleague in the Ohio House at the time, Representative Hagan, took that bill one step further, and he added CEOs of companies to that. I thought you'd get a kick out of that. So not only members of the legislature should be drug tested randomly and regularly, CEOs of companies that receive tax subsidies should be drug tested as well. We were making a point, and we were using the bully pulpit to do so. And I hope that the members of the legislature in Iowa, the ones that know how horrible File 3 is, will stand up and fight to number one, make sure that this bill never sees the light of day, and secondly, use their bully pulpit to draw the distinction and make it plain about what this really is. It is exploitation and hate of poor people in this country, and it really is immoral, and it is more than a shame. We'll be right back after this. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Idarola. This is gonna be a big one.
Meanwhile, in the Arctic, you know where this is going. You watch the Damage Report, the Arctic's on fire. Obviously, why would we be talking about the Arctic except to tell you that it's melting once again? The Republicans aren't that interested in it. I wonder why. Lift out of poverty up to 3.7 million people, including an estimated 1.3 million children. Hashtag save the children? Not if it costs money. I mean, come on.
What's happening? I'm Dr. Rashad Ritchie, host of Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie. Here's the bottom line. I play no games about policy, period. Too many people's lives are at stake. So here's what I do. I challenge conservative ideology that hinders the growth of this country. I make sure we place our facts in proper context, and I have no problem debating anyone on a position that I have. Progressives have the ideas to change the world, but when you really look at it, progressives have always change this world for the better. I want you to tune into my new show, Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, right here on the TYT Network, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time. I'll see you there.
Everything that we've accomplished over the years is because of our members who've allowed us to remain independent of corporate interests and reach 20 million followers. Now is the time to bring as many people into the progressive movement as possible. We're inviting you to be the change and help bring a community-powered progressive change machine to life. Details are at tyt.com/change. If you're a member, thank you. We need you to remain so. If you're one of the thousands of viewers out there who's not a member yet, the time has come for you to join now. We need you more than ever. tyt.com/change.
Welcome back to the show. My absolute favorite part, and I'm so glad Jessica is here. She's gonna read the comments. Before we get to those comments, I want us to offer our condolences to members in that community who lost their family members and friends. It is definitely a crushing thing to have to deal with. So our thoughts and our prayers are going out to those families. And I mean, it's just, we're covering a lot of heavy stuff on the show today, and we got to pause for a minute just to acknowledge that and not pretend like, everything is all right, because everything is not all right. As Jessica laid out, 33 shootings already. We're 20, with only 23 days in. I mean, there is something very wrong with this, and all of us, each and every one of us, has to take stock of the moment that we are in and keep pushing for brighter days. We're gonna do that. Now tonight, John is having his old school. We're gonna give Daddy Dragon some love tonight. He's doing that today. So are you ready to show your love for his show tonight? 10 p.m. ET, 7 p.m. PT on TYT.com. That's live. Is Daddy Dragon's anniversary. So please support John and the Dragon crew. And you can subscribe at YouTube.com subscribe at YouTube.com for Unbossed TYT. Absolutely do that, but make sure you join Daddy Dragon tonight. And you can also grab merch at shoptyt.com. And if you are not a member of TYT, what are you waiting for? Come on, join us, become a member and subscribe. You can sign up, you can spin a wheel. You can become that member at tyt.com/spin the wheel to get your membership confirmation, and you land on that prize, and then we will send that to you via the mail. So come on, don't wait, do it today. Jessica, what are our viewers saying about the show today?
They're as happy about Mondays as I would say we are. A lot of excitement. Vicky, who's a TYT member, said starting off the week right with Nina and Jess. Oh, on Twitch, Melanie says, Nina Turner 2024, hello somebody.
Hello somebody.
There we go. Then we have Drengar Dragon said, Black Pearl Dragon Queen bows deeply. Always a good Monday with Nina and Jess. And then Donald says Nina and Jessica Monday, just people really excited.
Very good. I'm glad that they are, Jessica. And even though we're covering some really deep seated subjects today, so glad that our viewers are finding the time to lift and encourage us. So thank you all so much. Jessica and I really do appreciate you. The entire Unbossed team appreciates you. And we at TYT appreciate you, because without you, we would not be able to be a strong, independent media network. We love you. So thank you so much. I'm gonna try to be, as cool, calm, and collected as I can. But this chick, so when I say chick and dude, it ain't out of respect, okay? It's what I can say and continue to be PG. So this chick named Tomi Lahren, I think that's her name. Yeah, she wants my attention. She's gonna get it. Remember when Tomi Lahren said this last year?
If you guys haven't checked out this chick, Nina Turner's Twitter feed, well, I suggest you give it a whirl for entertainment value alone, because she has got to be one of the most logically comatose woke people to ever enter Twitter.
Well, Tomi Lahren, baby, you wanted my attention. You are definitely going to get it today. She's back at it because she can't help herself. I'm in her head. She's thinking about me day and night. Baby, find something else to do. But since I'm in your head, we're gonna take this all the way. So we're gonna put up this tweet. I had tweeted about the fact that we really do need to do something about guns. I mean, Jessica and I were just talking about guns. So this chick took, the AR-15 is a hunting rifle that no hunter uses. I mean, those are the facts. But this genius quote tweeted. I mean, she came for me and I didn't send for her, but obviously she wants my attention. So I'm gonna give it to her. So she quote tweeted, luckily when the framers of the Constitution wrote, shall not be infringed. I wonder who helped her with that. You weren't around to give your opinion. Now, ladies and gentlemen, family and friends, as I said, I am going to try my darndest to keep my composure. So I quote tweeted this chick back. Let's put up my stunt double said, the same framers who own human beings. Because obviously this chick don't know what century we were in when she said, luckily, my opinion, that I wasn't around to give my opinion. Well, there were people who look like me who were around, but they couldn't give a damn opinion. Guess what? Because 10 out of 10, they were chattel slave. That's why they couldn't give a damn opinion. But this genius wouldn't understand that. So let's put up the next tweet from my stunt double on this chick. Let me be even more direct for you, genius. The human beings, many of them owned, being many of the framers and others who didn't frame the Constitution, but they owned it. You know, at the time of the American Revolution, keep my tweet up, please. Before this nation was formed, when they were fighting for their liberation and their freedom from the crown, they could have said, hey, we're gonna do the right thing and set everybody free. We wanna be free from the British crown, and we know that slavery is immoral as hell. Holding Africans and then their descendants in slavery is immoral as hell. So while we're freedom fighting, while we're trying to fight for our liberation, we're gonna do away with it. But oh no, they did not do it. So I had to straighten her out, because see, she don't know much. So let me be more direct for you, genius. The human beings, many of them owned, were Africans and their descendants. Therefore, none of my ancestors got the benefit of being in the room. Is this the type of lucky you were referring to? Now, because this is a family show, but I'm sure many of you can read my mind. Woo, fire extinguisher time, Jessica, but I'm gonna leave it. So now this chick is either willfully ignorant or her grift pays extraordinarily well, or both. And so I'm feeling very generous today, and I'm gonna help this chick out. Let's put up with the Second Amendment, let's read it. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The part she quoted, not be infringed. She ain't gonna dare quote nothing in the preamble though, because that doesn't fit. That doesn't fit the narrative that she's trying to push. So the Second Amendment is not absolute. In other words, it's no more important than any of the other amendments. In the Constitution. And let's be clear here. The Congress does have a right to regulate guns. Now, the United States Constitution was signed in 1787. And as I said earlier, people who look like me weren't in the damn room, because 10 out of 10, they were chattel. Somebody need to phone this chick and let her know. So the next time she come, maybe she'll come with something that is a little more coherent than luckily you weren't around for your opinion to matter. Now, so chattel slavery is happening in 1787. That's it. Is that the lucky that she was referring to? Something wrong with her, but her grift pays. And so this point that was made by Eli McStyle is really going to blow this chick's mind. Take a look.
Look, Ali, you argue that an individual right to self-defense with a gun was not provided by the Second Amendment, but by the conservative Supreme Court's interpretation of the Second Amendment in its Heller decision. You also say, quote, there was an original purpose to the Second Amendment, but it wasn't to keep people safe. It was to preserve white supremacy and slavery.
So I'm coming up with that just because I'm reading Patrick Henry and George Mason, who was then governor of Virginia at the founding of the country. This is not my words. This is what those white guys said when they were debating the Second Amendment. They said that they needed a Second Amendment because they needed the armed, disciplined, that was their word, militia to put down slave revolts. And they were worried that under the original Constitution, the federal government had all of the power to raise the militia, right?
Yep. He gets that just right. Slave owners at the time had a higher rate of gun ownership than anybody else. Now, we had more guns. As historians will tell you, there were more guns than people had furniture. But slave owners had a disproportionate amount of guns. They had a lot of guns. Why? Because the Southern militias, they weren't concerned about the big bad government coming to do something to them. They were concerned with regulating and controlling black bodies, black minds, black hearts, and black souls with their guns. But guess who couldn't own a gun? Black people. Hello, Tomi? Can you hear me now? Can you feel me now? Oh, you wanted my attention, baby, and you are getting it today. You gonna learn, chick. Don't come for me unless I send for you. Find something else to do with your time. But for the love of all things that are good, at least study history so you will know a thing or two. Now, as that interview pointed out, it was the 2008 Heller decision that changed the game in terms of individual rights to bear arms. The Supreme Court of the United States had not established gun ownership as a personal right outside of the context of military service until the 2008 Heller decision. Genius. So the court did decide that the Second Amendment guarantees an individual right. A police officer from DC, he sued, he wanted to be able to hold his gun. The court ruled in his favor, and that expanded how individuals can carry weapons. However, the Supreme Court did not take away the right to regulate how guns are utilized in this country at all. But for the Tomi Lahrens of the world, her ilk, be careful, study the history, because that Second Amendment had racist tendencies in it, just like most of the United States Constitution. In other words, it was to keep Black folks under control. So when you talk about luckily, I wasn't around for my opinion to have been heard. Well, again, there were people who look like me who were around and who could not have their opinions heard because they were chattel slaves. So you want to talk about lucky? It was unlucky. And this country, again, was founded on racism and bigotry and anti-Blackness. And we got a lot more work to do to form a more perfect union. Genius. Jessica, I can't with this chick.
You know, she comes from the kind of political faction that's very much against subsidies and handouts, but she's letting you live rent-free in her head, Senator. The thing about this is, if you want to be, which Tomi Lahren and people like her do, this kind of political nerd that gets really into the Constitution, gets really into the political theory, and uses that to profess what people should want from their government, even if it's against their self-interest, the one thing she's neglecting is that in any good democracy, you have a social contract, which oftentimes comes in the form of a constitution. And in a democracy, everyone should have a say in what's in that social contract. And it's about time we update the Constitution. And the only reason Tomi Lahren doesn't want to do that is because it benefits her as a white woman in society. And she wants to cling on to that power. And she doesn't actually want to live in a democracy, but she wants to profess to her base of followers that listen to her because she professes hatred and satisfies the part of them that wants to keep playing with their guns. But at the end of the day, she doesn't have the mental fortitude, if we were to reach the point where it's time for a new social contract, to actually come up with good public policy and good governance. And she's only relevant because she's picking fights with people like you who has the mental fortitude to talk about what a good society and good government would look like.
You better go ahead on, Jessica. She does not have mental fortitude. You better underline that, underscore, bold it, put a message in a bottle on a train. Not on Southwest Airlines. She does not have the mental fortitude. And you know, Jessica, one other very important point that's in the preamble of the Constitution, which none of these geniuses ever talk about, but to promote the general welfare, to ensure domestic tranquility. How about you underline and bold that? Genius. Tomi. Yeah, I am in your head rent free, baby. Please find something else to do. Now we're on to another favorite segment of mine. I don't know if it's my favorite, it's just very disappointing. But the neoliberals are at it again because they can't help themselves. They got me saying, and this is Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg, failures as a transportation secretary, really got me saying, WTF, neoliberals.
We will now kneel.
Miss Cinema, no.
You have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
So on Unbossed, we have documented Buttigieg's and Biden's betrayal of the rail workers, including that 117th Congress. Yeah, except for the few that voted against being against the rail workers' ability to go on strike and to stop them from going on strike. Because I know what folks are gonna say, oh my God, if they went on strike, the economy would have crashed and burned. Okay, all right. Then give them what they were asking for. And all they were asking for was sick days, which they still do not have. So on Unbossed, we continue to cover this. And Buttigieg's mishandling of the holiday travel debacle with Southwest in particular really amped up how this man is in over his head. But now there's more. Check out this headline. Airline CEO admits ticket scam permitted by Buttigieg. Now, listen, you don't have to take freedom fighting progressive Nina Turner's word for it. The airline CEO admits ticket scam permitted by Buttigieg. United Airlines CEO said airlines are selling seats for flights they can't staff. But Buttigieg hasn't acted on state officials' demands that he cracks down. Not even since the Southwest debacle. Not even when attorney generals across this country, both Republican and Democrat, pleaded with this man to do something to regulate these airlines because they were taking advantage of the people of this country, even well before the Southwest blow up. So, in unusually candid comments to company investors, United CEO Scott Kirby said ongoing cancellations among competitors are happening because the airlines are advertising schedules they can't actually fly. In other words, they being deceptive from the beginning. Selling tickets that they know good and well, to quote my grandmother, good and well, that they had no intention of seeing those flights take off. At all, no intention whatsoever. Now, furthermore, complaints against the major US airlines, including United, more than tripled in the first year of COVID-19 pandemic, as companies routinely sold tickets for flights they could not adequately staff, canceled the flights at the last minute, and slow-walked or withheld funds while collecting billions in taxpayer bailout dollars. Thank you, the lever, Jessica.
Pete Buttigieg, man, I'm not surprised. This guy is a McKinsey consultant that got appointed to a position because Barack Obama made a phone call and asked him to politely drop out, probably offering the concession of giving him a position in the administration because he was doing quite well and they needed to consolidate power behind Biden to ensure Bernie wouldn't win. That is why he's in this position. His background as a McKinsey consultant certainly doesn't qualify for this job because he's in a position where he should be protecting consumers and the American people, ensuring that we have effective transportation. He's not doing that. He's very clearly looking out for the companies, just like he did for McKinsey. I'm not even gonna mention being mayor of South Bend because Notre Dame's a college town with a tiny population that doesn't qualify him to hold public office or fight for the people. So who does Pete work for at the end of the day? Because he'll go on MSNBC and CNN and he'll say stuff like, we're prepared to take action. And I don't think there's anyone less prepared to take action than a bureaucrat who says that on MSNBC and CNN. And look where we got. He didn't take action. So what's going on here? Is Pete just being offered from these CEOs, you know what, after you're out of office, we'll give you very high dollar payment speaking engagements for you to politely do nothing at all in the short term and nothing in the long term either about regulating us so we can continue to exploit the public. And then the administration will brag that people are flying just as much as they did before the pandemic and claim that we've recovered economically when really it's a recovery for the upper class who can afford to travel while everyone else is suffering. An absolute mess.
An absolute mess. There it is. Y'all know, you know why this. If you didn't know before, you know why this is Jessica Burbank Monday, baby. I mean, she put it down. She laid it down. She dropped the mic. Yeah, on that, absolutely nothing. Now you would think that this would spur Buttigieg into action, but alas, no, not at all. The behavior prompted 34 attorney generals to write Buttigieg on December the 16th, that was last year, asking his agency to require airlines to advertise and sell only flights that they had they have adequate personnel to fly and support and perform regular audits of airlines to ensure compliance and impose fines on airlines that do not. Again, this is coming from Republican and Democrat attorney generals begging this dude to do his job, because guess what? The Secretary of Transportation has the absolute authority, underline, bolded, underscore, exclamation point, message in a bottle on a train, not on Southwest. They have the authority. He has the authority to regulate these airlines, but he didn't do it. Now, despite the demands and subsequent holiday travel debacle, Buttigieg's agency has been delaying the rulemaking process amidst industry pushback. Again, answering to the owner donors, because you know what? Lead that up. One day, he just may try to run for president again. So he ensures that his owner donors are happy. The airline's top Washington lobbying group is currently seeking a public hearing that will further postpone a final rule. In other words, we want to hurt consumers again and again and again, more than we have already. We want to continue to hurt consumers. But the last time I checked, the Secretary of Transportation is supposed to work for we the people, not we the corporations. Maybe somebody needs to send Buttigieg that message in a bottle and not on a plane. So we're seeing history repeat itself, much like Buttigieg caved to the rail barons. He's caving to the airline executives, scamming the system and robbing people of their hard-earned money. And my stunt double did call him out. She didn't hesitate. This is what she had to say, and I'm amen in what she said. Secretary Pete does not care about American consumers. He continuously put corporate interests over the people. When you are a bureaucrat or an elected official, that's supposed to go the other way around. You are supposed to be working for the people and not for the corporations. I mean, hell, if he wanted to do that, he might as well went on Jessica stayed at McKinsey. Oh, I sighed deeply on this one. We'll be back after this.
Cenk Uygur is not here today, which means that I will be able to talk during the show.
We'll see. We'll see.
Poor Cenk, under the bus.
My God, if Jesus came back, how much would the Republicans hate him? Now you have to give away all of your possessions to the poor. Steve King would be like, oh, Weezy. Everyone should be lucky enough to have a John Iadarola in their life.
You confused everyone?
Okay, sorry, I thought it was pretty clear.
Take a break now.
You can turn me into Dr. Manhattan as long as I get what Dr. Manhattan's packing, okay?
The liberal mom says, Mark Thompson, have you ever thought about doing one of those tapes that soothe people to sleep? Like Mark Thompson reads the phone book. I'd buy it.
If you'll buy it, I'll do it.
Emilio D'Amelio writes in, John, you are so thick. I love you. That's what he wrote.
Pork Chop Express writes in and says John Iadarola needs a new jacket.
Whoa.
Those 24-inch pythons are about to burst out of his sleeve.
Gun, baby. You know, the two people here said that their moms were both in love with you over Beauty and the Beast.
Mm-hmm. That's an improvement. I usually get grandmothers.
Charlie Turk.
No, wait a minute, don't you dare.
Chemical castration when we return from the break.
I hope that, who they choose for the White House isn't just a borderline Klansman. That's all we gotta hope.
That's it, we will settle it.
She's cute. I didn't say that about Laura Ingraham.
Scandal at TYT. Did Anna comment on my tan yet? No, she hasn't.
You're a good bosser.
But Anna did say that I come in here today with a fresh mind. That's all I'm about. I'm about a fresh mind.
I can't with you right now. Okay?
She just can't. She can't, but nonetheless, we have to for another 3 hours. I'm back, baby. Let's rip in the Republicans. See, don't miss the live show.
That's great.
Tell people, if you're a member, you get the whole live show whenever you want, because this stuff doesn't go into any of the clips.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Iadarola. This is gonna be a big one.
Meanwhile, in the Arctic, you know where this is going. You watch the Damage Report, the Arctic's on fire. Obviously, why would we be talking about the Arctic except to tell you that it's melting once again? The Republicans aren't that interested in it. I wonder why. Lift out of poverty up to 3.7 million people, including an estimated 1.3 million children, Hashtag save the children? Not if it costs money. I mean, come on.
What's happening? I'm Dr. Rashad Richey, host of Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey. Here's the bottom line. I play no games about policy, period. Too many people's lives are at stake. So here's what I do. I challenge conservative ideology that hinders the growth of this country. I make sure we place our facts in proper context, and I have no problem debating anyone on a position that I have. Progressives have the ideas to change the world, but when you really look at it, progressives have always changed this world for the better. I want you to tune into my new show, Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey, right here on the TYT Network, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time. I'll see you there.
Everything that we've accomplished over the years is because of our members who've allowed us to remain independent of corporate interests and reach 20 million followers. Now is the time to bring as many people into the progressive movement as possible. We're inviting you to be the change and help bring a community-powered progressive change machine to life. Details are at tyt.com/change. If you're a member, thank you. We need you to remain so. If you're one of the thousands of viewers out there who's not a member yet, the time has come for you to join now. We need you more than ever. tyt.com/change.
And welcome back, Jessica. What are our viewers saying?
We've got a bunch here. Dana says, don't come for me unless I send for you. Nina Turner. Octo said, how's it living rent-free in Tommy's head? Small space, I imagine. It's actually a big space because her brain takes up so little of it. YouTube super chat, Sammy said, if telling Tommy off is wrong, then I don't want to be right. Hashtag Nina Turner for Prez. Then Nika says, Nina is getting real stuff done with substance. Heart emoji.
Oh, love it so much. Love each and every one of you. They just kind of make me appreciate you. We really do appreciate you so very much. And as I say each and every time, thank you so much for your support and your love of Unboss, our entire team, the TYT Network. We could not do what we do without you. Oh, Jessica and I are bringing this story to you. I have often over the years talked about Flint. Flint, Michigan is the canary in the coal mine in terms of dirty water and failure of government, starting with the state level of government, failure, just absolute failure to really be in service to the people. So Flint is still without clean water. Almost 9 years, this crisis continues to make the people of Flint, Michigan suffer. And the latest in the battle, let's take a look at this headline. Flint residents urged to filter water as bottled water donations end amid ongoing water crisis. The replacement of lead service line pipes is set to be completed in August. I just want folks to imagine that if you were a resident of Flint, Michigan, how in the world for years you would have to endure this kind of neglect. Because water definitely is life. It's not one of those things that we can negotiate away. People need clean water. Now, health officials are urging residents to continue to use faucet filters. This work was supposed to be done in 2019. The residential lead service line replacement was initially set to be finished in 2019, according to a settlement agreement with the city. The deadline was eventually pushed back to the fall of 2022 and has most recently been set for completion in August of 2023, according to city officials. The city is, doing the bare minimum. The city is offering free water units, replacement cartridges, and water testing kits for Flint residents for pickup at City Hall or for delivery by the Office of Public Health. Now, if I were the mayor of that city, baby, nobody would get rest. I mean, nobody would get rest. From the state level to the federal level, county level, every other level, nobody would be getting rest until my residents were made whole, but that's just me. Thus, rightfully so, there's a lack of trust in the city's tap water. But as a reminder, since 2018, 100,000 water bottles have been delivered weekly by Blutron Brands Inc., a Connecticut-based beverage company serving approximately 3,000 people per week, according to Flint officials. And this is what the mayor stated, more than 95% of lead pipes in Flint have been replaced, and we will continue to work until the job is done. I will work with anyone who is committed to making that happen. I ask those remaining homeowners to give our crews right of entry so that we can fix this once and for all. That's coming from the Flint mayor. I don't know, Jessica. I mean, there's just not enough of righteous indignation in that statement for me, but that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, these people clearly don't understand economics. To use the cost of what it takes to give people water as a reason for why they don't have it yet, it doesn't make sense. Because when you think about an economy, meeting people's most basic needs is the first step to having a functioning economy. You need water to live. The economy doesn't exist if people don't have their basic needs met. That's very simple, very straightforward. Adam Smith, who's regarded as the father of capitalism, said, human beings live together, and the reason we are the dominant species on the planet is because we work together and can accomplish more than we can separately, right? So this is the father of capitalism, and here we have an economic system where people meeting their most basic material needs is somehow a struggle. We are going backwards. When we talk about the United States being the wealthiest country in the world, talking about other countries saying that they lack civility, what kind of civility do we lack when we can't guarantee water for our people? It's absolutely absurd and ridiculous that still Flint has become a campaign stop and it's not resolved at this point in time. People go to Flint, they promise all of these things to the people there in Michigan, and then as soon as campaign time is over, they ignore it. We are spending so much money on so many other things, huge defense spending bills. We could very easily fix the pipes in Flint and guarantee that they have clean water, and it's a decision that they don't do that.
That's it. This is a public policy choice, Jessica. You hit the nail on the head. I think that military industrial complex budget that the Congress just passed in a bipartisan way, $858 billion would be. They had no problem passing that, but yet, all these years later, our sisters and brothers and family and friends in Flint, Michigan are still begging folks for clean water. But to make matters worse, a Michigan appeals court panel upheld a lower court's dismissal of charges against 2 defendants in the Flint water crisis. That includes former Michigan Department of Health Chief Medical Executive Eden Wells and former Flint Emergency Manager Darnell Early. What were they charged with? So glad you asked. Eden Wells had faced 9 counts of involuntary manslaughter and 1 count of willful neglect of duty. And Darnell Early had faced 3 counts of misconduct in office. So, I mean, there is just really, as Jessica and I are laying out here, something seriously wrong in this country when people got to grovel for water, clean air, clean food should be the basics. I mean, that is the basic. That is not reaching too high. That is not asking for too much. It is what we need to survive. And it is incumbent upon each and every one of us to stop being complicit in our own demise. While these mofos are playing games on the city, county, state, and federal levels of government, you got places like Flint that still don't have clean water. You got our sisters and brothers and family and friends in Jackson, Mississippi. You can count, there are places all over the country where clean water is not assured. And it could come to a city or a neighborhood near you. So we all ought to care about this. So while these folks are playing games, they need to get down to the business of protecting the general welfare. And part of doing that, for the love of God, is to ensure that people have some clean water. What? Something's wrong with us. Hello? We need to take a page out of the folks' book in France over there. 1 million people taken to the streets. We need to take it to the streets in the streets, baby, is where this fight needs to go for the basic necessities to live. Just to live. We ain't even talking about the dream big, just to live. Flint, we see you. Jackson, Mississippi, we see you. And all the other places in this country, we see you. Let's stand united in fighting for workers and fighting for clean food, clean water, clean air. Can we do that? Yes, we must do that. And you're daggone right, I'm hot to trot right now. Hot right now. People got to start putting the requisite emotion when this stuff is going wrong. If your hair is on fire, act like your hair is on fire. Until tomorrow, I'm gonna put my hair out so I can be back tomorrow. But I'll be back tomorrow, and Jessica will be back with us next Monday. You all take good care. We sending love. You know what I want you to do about this time? I want you to keep the faith, and I want you to keep the fight.